Hi, everyone. I am your host, Henry Clavo, CEO and founder of Orlando Insight Group. Each episode, we dive deep into real conversations with technology leaders and innovators and experts who are shaping the future of data and cybersecurity and business leadership. Our goal is simple to give you practical insights, real world strategies, and expert perspective that you can use to drive smarter decisions and stronger results for your business. So, thank you for joining us this week. And this week's guest is Misty Carson is a trusted insurance consultant with OneDigital, the host of the Policy Playbook podcast, known for her ability to simplify complex insurance challenges. Misty helps businesses leaders make confident, informed decisions that protect their organization and support long-term growth. Her path to leadership is rooted in the resilience, both to learn, born to a teen mother and raised in poverty. Misty became a mother herself at 17 and began building her career early, selling cars at 20 while raising her family on her own. Refusing to accept limitations, she went on to earn her associate's bachelor's and master's degree in organization leadership before entering the insurance industry at 33 with a Century. Today, Misty is recognized for her unique talent in connecting the dots, aligning leadership goals, people strategies, and protection plans into cohesive solutions that drive both security and performance. Clients trust her not only for her expertise, but for her genuine care. She is known as an advisor who advocates for their business as if it were her own. Through the Policy Playbook podcast, Misty extends her mission of education, breaking down complicated insurance and risk topics into practical insights business leaders can immediately apply. Bold, witty, and fiercely competitive, she balances an approachable style with relentless focus on results, bringing clarity, confidence, and conviction to everything she does. So, welcome, Misty. Welcome to the Orlando Insights podcast.
Thank you, Henry. That was really nice. That was an awesome introduction. I appreciate you having me and being here.
Oh, we love to have diverse voices here in our podcast, and we wanted to invite you because of your experience and your work. So welcome. Let's get started.
Sure.
Let me start with sorry. Your book argues that adversity produces elite performance traits, resilience and adaptability, courage and resourcefulness and drive. How do these traits translate into measurable business success, Misty?
When you've had to survive in difficult backgrounds and adverse childhood experiences, you've already been trained in high stake decision making under real pressure. You just didn't realize that's what was happening. You develop what I call in the book warrior credentials, things like the ability to handle an immense amount of pressure, the ability to have rejection over and over and still show up to do the job, and a very unique perspective on the room, reading the room and what's happening that can't really be taught in any classroom or any training program. In business, this shows up as crisis management, faster decision making, and the ability to execute when everyone else is absolutely paralyzed. You have a measurable ROI with higher close rates, stronger teams, and people who don't quit when things get hard.
Yeah. One of those skills that it is developed under pressure, be able to respond or sink or swim. So that is usually the case for me when I'm working on business solution at home or things of that nature. So it makes sense. Many high performers come from challenging backgrounds, but don't recognize their own competitive advantage. How can business leaders identify these traits in themselves and in their teams, Misty?
The biggest thing is you need to be scanning for how they react in particular situations. So, do they perform under stress that usually shuts your other team members down? Do they process no's without emotional damage? Do they know what actually matters when there's so many things moving at a fast pace? Can they stay focused when the distractions are multiplying, especially for you and I? Henry, right now at the end of the year, can you stay focused on the end goal? Do they command attention by earning confidence of others quickly, effectively? Can they read a room? Can they read what people mean and not just what they're saying? The unspoken objections. Can they create solutions even if there's very limited resources? Do they build trust through honesty, vulnerability with people naturally? Are they calibrated just to be able to work really effectively, just head straight forward to the desk under pressure? And can they create relationships really quickly through just being present. When you know what to watch for and you can see these things in your teammates, it's extremely clear that how they show up and communicate, they're utilizing these warrior credentials. Definitely.
Yeah. It is parent training and identifying these traits, not only to help them grow, but also put them in positions that they can empathize, but at the same time make critical decisions that would help the business grow. So that makes sense, Misty. And from your experience, what differentiates a survivor from a true output performer in a business environment, based on your experience, based on your work in the industry?
So it's really interesting. A lot of people who have been through adverse childhood experiences, they still will potentially be either on the precipice of high performance or they are performing it, but deep down, they know they could do more. They're not exactly sure what's keeping them locked. And
Mm.
when you're operating as a survivor, you're in pure defense mode. You're operating and moving much like you did in those situations. You're protecting what you have, avoiding risk, and looking to stay safe. When you realize the skills that you have, you become a high output performer. So you've actually converted all those survivor skills into weapons. You see opportunity where others see threat. The real shift is when you realize that all the things that kept you alive and safe back then now make you unstoppable. So it's not about what happened to you, it's about what you're building because of it and how to stop sabotaging those beliefs and allowing others in your circle to make you feel like you're trying to play too big or showcasing their love as limitation.
Understood. And it's usually a mismatch when someone joins an organization. They're high performers, and you have different people that have different working styles. I guess that's why we have interviews. That's why we have trainings. We have resources to make sure that everybody's aligned, what are the expectations, and be able to understand everybody's, I guess, pros and cons of their personalities. That makes sense. You're known for taking complex insurance and risk issues and translating them into clear decisions for executives. What's your approach to simplifying complexity for business leaders? I'm sure you do this every other week, I imagine.
Yes. Yeah. I start with one question. Like, what decisions need to be made? So you need to strip out all of the jargon, all of the language, all the consultant speak. As insurance professionals, we really speak to leaders in a way that's difficult for them to digest and understand. They really need to understand what's the real exposure. What does protection actually cost them, not just in premium, but also in gaps in coverage? And then what happens if the decisions or the policies that they have are. So business leaders need insurance education, but in a way that they can understand what the end result is going to be for them. They need clarity so that they can decide with confidence and move forward. That's it. We way overcomplicate it.
It makes sense. Take me for example. I usually come into meetings, talk about technical work, but usually my boss would say, "What is the end goal? What are you trying to build? And what is the cost associated with?" So,
Yeah, that is exactly right. That's all you need to know. The rest of it you leave up to us. That's why we have insurance license, right? That's why we have to have continuing education credit. It's our job to decipher and put it into straight language for you with a real measurable result.
business leaders often drown in information. What signs tell you a leader is operating without clarity, and how do you restore it? Oh, that's a great strategy.
Yeah, so they're asking the same question twice. They're either hedging every answer or they're delegating decisions that they should own. I restore that clarity by helping them eliminate the noise. It's really difficult when there's so many people offering a shiny price without understanding what that means. So we need to identify three variables that actually matter. So, and ignore everything else. They need clarity. Clarity isn't always about having more information, it's about having the right information and understanding why that information matters to you at the end of the day.
And when you do facilitation and you do workshops, does that answer all their questions? How do they engage with those? If someone gives you a problem,
Mhm.
how does that process look like when you're trying to make a goal in their work?
Yeah, so they need to understand what that problem is costing them and what their desired change is going to be. So, what is the end result? What is the issue keeping you from at the end of the day? That's your end goal. So, when I do workshops, a lot of it is through workbooks. So, there's a lot of getting clear by asking yourself real questions and then reframing what that looks like and coming at it from a different perspective or a different angle. So the most important thing is to understand what the real problem is, not the surface level problem. So the surface level problem might be that the cost in goods has gone up exponentially, but what does that mean at the end of the day? If the cost of goods goes up and the cost of the price goes up, and we might have less consumers, or I might have to pay people more overtime to make more parts because I'm not going to be able to make as much net profit on the parts that I am putting out. And what does that mean? What does that cost me in benefits? What does that cost me in payroll? What does that cost me in distribution? So the end of the day, it's where am I shifting dollars is the problem. Where am I going to get the extra dollars that's required to keep my net margin the same? And then we back into or reverse engineer.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that clarity really should be the forefront of what they're trying to solve and the business they're in. And if they don't know that, I assume that they won't be successful.
That's exactly right.
And you've built and led teams in highly competitive environments. What are the core elements of high performance sales and or client facing teams?
3 non-negotiables. You have to create psychological safety. You have to set very clear expectations, and you have to hold them accountable without any excuses.
Mm.
People perform when they know it's safe to speak up without getting punished. They know exactly what winning looks like in your organization. And when that standard applies to everyone, including leadership, everything else is just tactics.
Tactics. Can you spend more on the tactics part?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I say everything else is just tactics, everything else is just things that you're putting out there to make it seem like you have this robust leadership process or this robust leadership team or streamlined thing that you're doing. The tactics when you're giving different caveats to different team members, whether that's leadership, mid leadership, upper leadership, you have a high performer that doesn't have to apply to the same standards as everyone else. To the company or the organization, that's a tactic to bring in more money. What they don't understand is that they're poisoning the well and they're creating an environment where they're going to have high turnover, people who aren't going to perform at their highest capacity because they feel unheard, unseen, and unvalued.
Wow. Yeah, that's usually the usual problems in organizations, especially in IT, insurance, tech, everywhere. How do you, from your experience at work, how do you answer those questions and how do you alleviate without huge churn and turnover rate?
Yeah, it's pure and simple. Everyone has to adhere to the same expectations. They have to show up, do the job, be accountable for their results. They're not allowed to treat each other with disdain or discontent. Everyone deserves the same respect, whether they're brand new and just starting to build their book or brand new and just learning their job, brand new on the operational side and they're a CSR, or they're a senior account executive, or they're your top performer. Everyone has to be upheld to the same exact standards. It's extremely important for everyone to feel that their role in the organization is just as impactful and just as important as the rest. And it starts with upper leadership. It's their responsibility to push that message down and create that culture and to be able to pull the trigger when things aren't happening that way. They need to be able to follow through with those accountability standards.
And I imagine they need to also have a team in order to delegate these roles and responsibilities to improve their work. So it is basically a team effort, I would imagine.
Absolutely. So you can't have the CEO, the CFO, the COO of the company taking these everyday occurrences, right, where we need to hold people accountable. Did you make the calls you were supposed to make today? Did you follow through with those documents that you were supposed to prepare? Are you following the workflow and the processes on a timely manner? The CEO can't call and make sure that that's being done, right? That's not their role in the organization. If it were, then you would never grow. They have other things that they need to focus on, but they need to make sure that their leaders understand that that is the expectation, and they need to hold their leaders accountable for the leaders holding the people who are there helping and leading accountable. It's all all a system.
And I could tell you stories about how failed leadership will result in, missed opportunities or even worse, legal challenges. So
That's right.
uh, it's a rock and a hard place, as my friend would say, trying to manage being an employee, working within the system, and then trying to make sure that it is followed through to the best of their ability while navigating the legal challenges. So it does make sense. And I also have a question. Many companies hire based on credentials, but not capacity. How can leaders spot high potential performance that traditional hire filters overlook?
I love this question. This is something I speak about a lot. So, our algorithms, when we're putting out job postings, are specifically focused on credentials
Mhm.
and polish. We're looking for polish. We're overlooking a massive subset of the population who do not come traditionally edged,
Mhm.
but they have exactly the capabilities that you're looking for. When they're saying they want a 4-year degree, what they're really wanting is somebody who can solve problems under pressure and somebody who is adaptable, right? Somebody who can fit things. What they're not understanding is there are a lot of the population who may still be finishing the degree, didn't get one until later in life, or life itself has literally given them an MBA's worth of qualifications, and they're completely being pushed out of the algorithm before they're even crossing the desk of these leaders who are looking for these high performers. The best question to ask is ask them about their very worst day, and then ask them what they did about it. So high potential performers have a track record of solving problems with very limited resources. They don't wait for permission and they don't blame circumstances. They just figure it out because they've always had to. That's the person you want on your team when your revenue is down, your clients are upset with you, or your entire plan for that quarter just seems to be falling apart by the second.
That makes a lot of sense. And especially with the advent of AI,
Mhm.
human in the loop is now more important than ever. How have you adjusted to that new reality post ChatGPT, Misty?
I love AI. I utilize AI a lot to help me decipher data.
Hmm.
So I love data when it comes to building plans and providing options for insureds. So I take that data and have it scan for trends really quickly for me, because once I start to sense trends, then I have a better idea of what type of program design is going to be the most effective for them for their total cost of risk, whether that is taking on a stronger deductible, moving to a large deductible plan, or even considering whether a captive may be a good play this time. It helps me build out multi-year strategies based on algorithms. And it's really sped up the amount of time. Normally, I would do that longhand.
Hmm.
That's something I would sit down, write out, look at. It would take me hours and hours and hours and hours of time just to go back and then forecast forward. So it's really streamlined that work so that I can take all that information and then create optimized program designs and options for my potential insurance.
Yeah, it's automation, especially here at OIG. We just take your use of develop work together with your strategies to make sure that your process is fully automated, but at the same time that it's doing correctly, the model's trained, and you're able to analyze the results before it is released. So, Misty, you're known for connecting the dots between goals, people, and protection strategies. How does that skill translate into stronger organizational performance?
Most companies treat insurance as a checkbox. I treat it as a business strategy. If you're scaling fast or your risk profile is changing, you could be entering new markets, your exposures are now different. If your people are your absolute competitive advantage, then their protection better reflect that, or you're going to have a turnover issue. When your risk strategy is aligning with your business strategy, you're not just covered, you're actually positioned to win.
Definitely, and it is important that people understand the structure and able to leverage that opportunity. If not, then it'd be.
Mhm.
Yeah. And what's one risk exposure business leaders consistently underestimate, especially in industries like construction, auto, or manufacturing?
Workforce utility.
Mm,
They're focused on all the other coverages, right, that come traditionally packaged. They're focused on their property insurance, their general liability insurance, on making sure that their work comp mod is low so that they can bid on contracts. But they're not calculating the true cost of turnover, what injury claims cost them from a work comp perspective, or losing their best people to competitors who have and offer better employment structures. In blue collar industries, people are their biggest capacity. If they don't have the people with the boots on the ground, you lose them, you're losing revenue, just
right.
period.
Yes, yeah, industries then, and especially in in restaurants that you have non-competes, and then you have union, all these organizations that prevent work from um, making the best decisions. So it does makes to understand your industry, be collecting data and making those decisions for the best. We're gonna your book will be released next year. Congratulations on that, Misty.
Thank you.
Your book isn't a memoir or therapy, it's a performance manifesto. What specific business outcomes can leaders or teams expect when they apply its principles?
Question. So it's really important to understand that there are so many people who have this ultimate capacity to perform in all the ways that you would want somebody to show up. They have grit, resilience, adaptability, pressure immunity. Understanding how to truly see them for who they are and create psychological safety, you are going to unlock uh, an amount of capacity and performance that you didn't even understand or recognize was available to you or the team. I think it's really important also that the people book is written for, which are the ones who went through those experiences, truly understand what it is that they hold inside and what that could mean for them for performance, for success. Um, Teams that really understand how to unlock that, they're going to experience higher close rates, faster decision making, better retention, and teams that don't quit when things get hard. That's going to it's going to show up in your revenue, it's going to show up in your culture, and it's going to show up in your competitive positioning.
Definitely, but there's also one aspect they need to change. If they want to lock the performance potentials of their team, what's the first mindset shift they should make? Like that's, I think that's most important. Like how you see yourself, but what, from your perspective, what needs to change, for that to happen?
For the person or for the
Both. We can do.
Yes. So for the person, they need to overcome their sabotaging beliefs. So there are very specific things that we tell ourselves, and they came from experiences that we had. So we need to stop thinking that we don't have the success. We need to stop believing that we don't have anything unique to offer. And we need to stop believing that somebody could do it better than we can. Once you recognize that those are things that you're saying to yourself, or they're things that are underlying reasons why you're not picking up the phone, reasons why you're not asking for the close, you're going to start to shift and see getting in your own way. I have an evidence over emotion framework in the book where you literally ask yourself 3 particular questions. So instead of feeling emotional about it, you're looking at it from a very cold and just hard factual information. And once you can answer those questions based on past results and based on what you can actually do, not what you feel you can do, that really makes a huge difference. For leaders, the biggest thing is allowing people to show up as their authentic selves. Don't ask them to be somebody that they're not. Don't try to turn them into your A player. Everyone has very unique abilities, and you need to allow them to be exactly who they are, because authenticity is probably the most important thing in a sales and a revenue driven culture.
Yeah, especially when it's to that. A good example is, cold reach. You can either be transactional, or you could be a person that builds relationship. What you say, how you say it really does matter. And that
Absolutely.
relationship is what builds a bridge for your success, for your business. Not only your image, but your brand as well.
1000%.
And Misty, what's the name of the book, and when do we expect that book to be released?
The book is called The Unbreakable Advantage: How to Turn Your Survivor Story into Sales Success.
Mm.
And it'll be fall 2026. It's in edits right now with the publisher.
Oh, we're excited to read it. We would love to have you come back and talk about certain chapters. I think that'd be a great opportunity for the business and data community to get your insights, your experience, and how you managed to become not only a successful business person, also a thought leader. So, Misty, thank you so much for joining us today. We would love to have you come back as your book comes at least next year, but it was having you. Is there any way that our audience can reach out to you? Any socials, any handles that they can reach out?
Yes, absolutely. So I started my own podcast where I give business leaders smart strategy talks, zero BS is my tagline. I really educate to understand, and I call out the bad performers in our industry, things that try to keep them confused and conflicted so that it's difficult for them to make the decisions that are right for them. That's called the Policy Playbook. You can find that on Apple, Spotify, anywhere where podcasts are downloaded. You can also find me at Policy Playbook on YouTube channel with videos and shorts, and the Misty Carson on Instagram, and LinkedIn is Misty Carson MSHRM.
Awesome. Well, Misty, thank you again for being our guest. We look forward to your success of your book, and look also having you. So this wraps up our latest episode of Orlando Insights Podcast. You can catch us on Spotify, YouTube, and then, and stay tuned for our next guest in the coming year, 2026. Thank you, Misty, and thank
Thank
you all.
you.
Have a good one.